It's time to awaken your inner traveler and zip around the world as money is sent to the people who rely on it. This is Money Travels, presented by Visa. I'm Indre Viscontis. Max Breisinger is an entrepreneur and filmmaker with a community of over 700,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he's already started two businesses, Circle Park and Creator Camp.
When I was 15, I moved to France, and I decided to start creating a film series where I documented my life. Started a YouTube channel, started making videos around my life, living in this foreign country, going to school, talking through what it felt like to be there. And started to build communities online and then try to create businesses around them. And so that kind of evolved into starting community-led businesses, events, an agency, all sorts of things, and kind of using YouTube as this vehicle to explore business and life and everything in between.
Welcome to Money Travels, presented by Visa. On this podcast, we follow the money as it zips around the world, enabling our fellow humans to survive and thrive. And we talk to the experts who are building the tools that will transform the next generation of money movement. In 2011, YouTube began calling its content producers creators as opposed to stars, to signify that it wasn't just famous people who were populating the platform with videos that were garnering lots of views. And the term stuck. Now it refers to anyone uploading content online. And while it's still a challenge to make a living solely from monetizing online content, the number of people who are part of the creator economy continues to grow rapidly. And this growth represents an opportunity for money movement businesses, but it also presents some unique challenges. To take us into this rapidly evolving landscape, we'll talk to Eric Wei and Will Kim, co-founders at Karat Financial, a bank built for the creator economy. We'll also hear from Brian McMullin, head of product and customer experience at SamCart, an innovative e-commerce platform for digital sellers, creators, and business owners. But first, let's hear Max explain how being a small creator can mean big business, and why Karat has been such a pivotal resource for that transition.
Right now, I'm at a creative retreat that we're running through a business I co-founded called Creator Camp. It's activities from workshops to collaborations, and then also talking about the journey of being a creator and helping each other and building these communities and sharing resources and trying to educate these folks. Because there isn't a lot of structure out there in the world, you kind of just become a creator, you gain an audience, and there's no one telling you what to do, how to navigate it. And I think that's probably the most difficult part of being a creator today, is it's very much the Wild West. So Creator Camp was an accidental business. It all stemmed from the idea of wanting to build more connection and community in the creator space. And at the time, it was 2+ years ago, I was starting to meet other creators who we all kind of bonded around the idea of making content that wasn't constructed for the algorithm. And we called it the YouTube new wave of how do you create content that is more storytelling based and trying to create a space for art in a platform that felt very media focused, business focused. For us, it was about answering and exploring the question of, can there be a financial way to support art on the internet? As more and more people grow up, as I grew up on the internet, it's important to have stories that make you feel something, that help you understand your life. And I think if content is all just formulaic, we're just missing something there that is part of the human experience. During my journey, Karat has played a really helpful role in, I think, helping answer and navigate the question, what is for the world, or what do I want to create versus what will actually perform well or sustain myself. And having that understanding of a business and being able to see it all in one place with Karat has been super helpful and allowed me to plan for certain things and to just have more control over what I want to do with my content and with my businesses, and having the tools to do that.
And in the service of making things a little bit easier, Eric Wei and Will Kim founded Karat Financial.
I previously worked at Instagram with creators and influencers and saw firsthand, oh my gosh, they're building real businesses. It's easier than ever to build a following online, to make content, and to make money from it. And while I was at Instagram, I was sharing a lot of these insights with Will, who's coming from a more financial background. He had built a microfinance org in high school that was recognized by Obama. He was running a venture fund at the time. And he helped me realize, hey, if there's an entire new generation of businesses being formed, there's a huge opportunity to help them with the picks and shovels. And speaking with these creators, I saw even though they might have millions of followers, they would struggle with simple questions like how to incorporate, how to get your taxes done, how to get a credit card limit higher than $10,000 a month, even though they were making seven figures. And Will and I realized this is something that we were uniquely suited to help with.
So what does Karat do then? Tell us about the services that you provide.
Anybody who's making money through content, we want to help them with credit, payments, taxes, banking. Every dollar flowing through the creator economy, we want to go through us.
We want to ultimately help creators with money. This is something that Eric loves to say over and over again, and I deeply agree with this. Why do we think that this is so valuable? Ultimately, we see creators as businesses. And not just that, in the future, we believe all businesses will be creator-driven because creators own distribution, and in business, it's all about your distribution. And so if we believe in this future where all businesses will be creator-driven, we need to make sure the financial stack works for the kind of pioneering generation of today, the creator business that we watch and see on a daily basis. And that's where we're building up this entire financial stack from the ground up.
Partnering more closely with Visa has helped us just build better products to solve more creator problems. An instance of this, when we initially launched the card, there was no ability for us to report credit history to bureaus. And this was intentional because for creators, many of them didn't really have credit history to start with. They were scared. They didn't really know what this was. They didn't want to do anything that might hurt it. But over time, we heard so many creators express, it's fantastic that like Karat understands what I'm doing, but I want to sure I can translate that back so other financial partners get that too. And it's only through years of getting to know and working with Visa that we were able to build and implement this. And now creators, when they work with Karat, not only are they able to take potentially higher limits with us, they're now able, if they'd like, to improve their own credit history so that other financial institutions, to go back to Will's previous point, one day you might want a mortgage, they can better navigate those challenges as well.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to say about how this partnership with Visa came about and what it has brought to your business?
I think we initially, when we got started, we started with the program manager, Stripe, and then we just knew, Visa's in the back end making this work. And as we continued to work with Stripe, we realized, we should talk directly with Visa and the team. And as we did, we learned it's an incredible support network for us, both in terms of the wealth of knowledge on just the tactics of fraud and the algorithms that we get provided just out of the box, but then also in terms of the funding to make sure that we can actually market effectively and really boost some of our growth efforts thanks to Visa. And then finally, actually having the willingness to engage in dialogue around what that Visa fraud algorithm does for us, where it falls short of meeting the creator economy, because creators have very interesting non-standard business use cases for spend, things like buying hundreds of subscriptions for their followers in the span of days, which looks like $5 transactions made 100 times online, which many networks might consider fraud. Visa being open to understanding, that's perhaps not fraud, allowing us to kind of modulate our scores so that the network can actually allow the transaction to go through. I think on all levels, right, Visa has been incredibly helpful as a partner.
What is different about the kinds of creators that you have really built this company for compared with other small businesses?
Number one, above everything else, they've put the cart before the horse. Many times they are making significant revenue. Our average client makes over $300,000 a year, and they're not even incorporated. They're not even doing taxes because YouTube is still relatively early, where the folks who really excelled at it grew up in almost a world of their own. And I think with the typical SMB, say a baker or a restaurant owner, you'd expect them to have a little bit more knowledge and sophistication on the financial side before they start to produce meaningful revenue. But with YouTube, because you just have to like shoot and film yourself and put it online, the partners are so good. No, you actually can be making like 6-7 figures and not have any of this figured out. And then here's the other unique part. Many financial institutions don't necessarily recognize the type of business you are either and know how to work with you. We've seen creators rejected all the time for even just opening up business bank accounts and business credit cards, even though the creators in question are making so much and are known so well.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think any small business that you go up to, they would have thought a little bit about what's my business plan? How do I make money? And there's a plan to make money. I would argue that this current generation of creators, the vast majority of them did not plan to make money when they started their channel. They just wanted to make great content. They wanted to share some joy with the world or entertain and educate the world. And they just so happened to chance upon $1 million business. And then they have to figure everything out retroactively, which is actually even more painful than trying to find and strike gold. You've struck gold, but now you need to structure everything and retroactively build a business around that can be extremely challenging.
And it can be also highly volatile. I mean, I think one of the reasons why you might have crediting institutions who are reluctant to forward credit is that, somebody who happened to make 300 grand on something that they didn't expect to make, who's to say that they're going to be continuing to be able to build that business or continuing even to have that kind of income come in? So how do you approach that aspect of the business, of its volatility, and how do you mitigate the risk that you as a financial provider potentially are taking on?
I would argue this is the same exact volatility that any small business would face around inventory and inventory management and treasury management. Ultimately, you need to buy some kind of inventory, so upfront capital investment, and then you need to spend, and then you earn money as you sell the stock of inventory. Now, for creators, that inventory is actually media. It's not goods, it's not services. And so you upload videos, but it's not like YouTube will pay you on day one for just uploading a video. You have to wait for the views to roll in, for those views to then get verified, and then ultimately for the advertisers to pay out. Similar for brand deals. If you do a brand deal with, say, Nike, they might pay you net 30 or net 60 or net 90. And all of a sudden, I need to produce content every single week to make sure that I keep up with the algorithm and my fans' engagement. And that costs me money, but I monetize on a net 60 timetable. And you can see the working capital problems that might emerge, which is no different from any SMB.
Yeah.
Now, how we think about this differently, just to be clear, is that we can actually look at that creator business. What is a pace of content? What is a pace of growth? And underwrite that, as opposed to looking at a FICO credit box where you're just looking at their credit history.
Yeah, I'll add, I really like the way Will framed it. And I think back a lot. I was reading Shoe Dog the other day from the founder and CEO of Nike, and he shares this crazy anecdote where Nike was growing so fast but needed working capital to continue purchasing inventory, to the point where the bank it was working with actually kicked them off because they were just like, I have no idea what you're doing, but this is not the pattern of cash flow that I'm used to from normal businesses, which makes sense and completely get it. But just as the financial institution was fair in its understanding of this is different from what I'm used to, Nike was obviously very reasonable too in its expectations and its growth pattern. And so, yeah, to Will's point, sure, obviously there's always risk in what you do, but it's risk that you can understand. And I'm very proud with Will of the underwriting model that we've built to understand creators as businesses and the flow of how they make money and how they spend.
Those are the kinds of insights that Karat co-founders Will and Eric have that some other financial institutions might not. And they really do benefit the creators. Here's Max describing how.
Karat, I must have met the guys a couple years back, but it was actually at a pivotal time because I turned 18 and had gotten my first credit card, and I only had $1,000 limit or something. But I was making thousands of dollars to YouTube and needed to buy equipment, travel, and do all sorts of things. And so I met them at the perfect time as my channel and businesses were starting to grow, and they were able to adjust my limits based off of follower counts, how much money I was actually bringing in. A lot of traditional institutions don't understand the business of being a creator. It's more volatile. It's a new thing. It's hard to know how to categorize it and how to actually how to treat it. And I think they came in with a much more, just a better understanding of how the business works and how creator businesses could grow and evolve, but how a lot of the current financial institutions are holding creators back from being able to grow, whether it's having a higher credit limit to, grow a team and reinvest in your business. I think that's the largest thing that they set out to do, is kind of remove those restraints.
That's exactly right. Here are Eric and Will again.
This didn't really exist before because it's just so new.
Yeah, and that means that there isn't a lot of data for you as Karat to really mine in order to understand what and be able to predict or create a model of the kind of growth that you might expect a creator to enjoy. So how do you do that? I mean, what is it? Is it a matter of some kind of vision of the future that you have, or is there already enough data from the past? What are the features that you look for in terms of trying to foresee the kind of growth that a particular content creator might engage in?
You're right. There's not enough data if we want to underwrite them for 30-year mortgages. I would agree with this because YouTube itself is only 20 years old, so there's not enough data for longitudinally checking the risk. However, we start with a very, very short-term cap kind of credit product with a charge card, just like an Amex, let's say, where you're actually paying off the full balance at the end of every month. And so the risk for us, the capital at risk is really net 30. And when we think on that short timetable, we actually have almost too much data. There is so much publicly available data about creators' social stats. It's all public. How much have they grown? What is their subscriber count? What is the kind of makeup of that subscriber count or follower count? And then we get their financials as well. So we look at cash flows. What is the cash flows across brand deals, advertising, subscription revenue? And what is the kind of stability of that over the past 2 to 5 years, which we can get through a Plaid link or any kind of bank aggregator of that sort. And with that data, the next 30 days becomes actually not trivial, right? This still took us years to refine this model, but it's something that is absolutely feasible with the past, say, 20 years of YouTube being around.
Because they're so online, we can look at any YouTuber and just based off the number of views that they're getting and the type of content they're producing and looking at the brand deals they're publicly sharing, you can get like a 80% accurate sense alone of that just from looking at the data available.
Was there anything that you can tell us about in terms of your brand strategy and how, even though you've laid out some pretty clear analogies between small businesses or more traditional small businesses and content creators, what's different in terms of the fact that your user base is primarily content creator, and how does that impact your own product strategy?
I mean, I think the core part of any good branding strategy is going to be focused on, do you understand your end user? And in that case, it's creators. And so when we think about creators, these are some of the best marketers in the world. They have a following. Our card holders have like an aggregate following of billions, I think 4 billion people. We want to use them as our marketing. They are going to be the best advocates for us, much better than we could ever make ourselves. And so everything that we do is try to build up creators, serve them better, and they can become our disciples, hopefully.
I mean, it's a really interesting point that your customer base, is arguably amongst the best marketing team in the world. That's literally what their business is sort of marketing themselves and marketing their creations directly to the consumers of their own content. And that also makes me wonder about this shift across generations in talking about money, about how people make money. I think there's been, some recent writing about how Gen Z and even to some extent millennials are more open about discussing their salaries, discussing how much money they make compared to previous generations. How do you think that sort of cultural shift has impacted the success of Karat or the willingness of people that bank with you to talk about what it's like to be involved with you?
Hugely. I think the previous generation, to your point, from a cultural perspective, because we were less open to talking through our financials, it also meant that the financial providers and partners we worked with were often just more commoditized. Oh, like, what bank do you use? What credit card do you use? I don't know, whatever that my mom told me I should get when I was 10 years old, and I kind of stayed with them. And you're seeing with this new generation, I think this big shift, not only toward open dialogue, but this desire to like, how do I be better? How do I ensure that I'm following all the hacks and tips and that I'm being smart about things? And that leaves a lot of room as a financial provider to differentiate yourself and to build something new that might not have the same storied history, but offer something that's different at a time when people are very open to saying, these things actually matter. What really is best for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think the world has shifted with just like the internet, say, and content in general. Like information is far more widely available. Information used to be king, right? Just like knowing the information, especially with AI tools nowadays, the information, even knowing the information is no longer relevant. And so as a result, I think people are far more willing to share the information because, one, that's not that valuable. And then two, what's more valuable is the community and the curation that happens after I share that publicly. When I share that, then other people who are like-minded might come and talk with me about, what I wanted to talk about. And so when I think about the podcast that Eric is running, what's very valuable with this Karat podcast is that, yes, we're able to share information about these creators and their stories. And that brings in other creators who are curious about, hey, I want to learn more about these stories. to reach out and say, hey, Karat, I'd love to join that podcast, share my story, and learn more. And so I think that it's really shifted, right? Information is no longer king. It's actually distribution and getting access.
And are you seeing creators getting a bit savvier about the monetization and also perhaps about what a sort of shift more towards monetization, what effect that might have on their content and on their audience? So what I'm thinking of is, let's say you have a creator who, for fun, put up a bunch of videos. Those videos go viral. All of a sudden, they're making all this money. And now they're thinking, oh, like I can add these additional revenue streams. And they start to create content that is a little bit more branded, a little bit more obviously about the monetization. And now they lose the followers that they were building as they, were just putting up this content organically. Are you seeing that kind of an effect? And if so, what are the trends within that you're observing?
What's exciting about the creative world and how much easier it's been to make content, make a living from it, is all potential goals are possible. And so we see creators who absolutely want to continue producing the exact same content as what they're doing, because that's always been the goal. And we've also seen creators who are like, wait, I have a huge business opportunity. Let me lean more into that, or even produce my own goods that align well with my brand. I think one of my favorite pieces, the New York Times did this interview with Emma Chamberlain, who was one of the first popular vlogger YouTubers to build a brand beyond just YouTube, where she describes herself as the opposite of Mr. Beast. And folks were like, well, you're both wildly successful. What do you mean by that? And she said, Mr. Beast views YouTube as a business. I view YouTube as a creative canvas for me to express myself. And what's really cool, and this goes back to Will's earlier point, why we think everyone's going to start to make content, it is so vast, containing multitudes and different ways of how you can make money. It's just a medium. It's like, in this world, to be known, you have to put something out there about yourself. I mean, that's what we're even doing in this podcast. And there's so many things and directions you can go with that and ways you can make money. And then at Karat, we're like, well, we want to be the infrastructure that supports all of it.
And for creators like Max, that really seems to be the value add of working with Karat.
I think a lot of creators today are trying to build businesses, and that's what Karat helps do as well, is thinking about those next steps of what it is like to explore other means of diversifying your income, whether it's through merchandise, through actually building a business on top of your audience, but finding other ways to kind of stabilize it, because I think brand deals don't feel like a very secure path of making income, because you don't have control and you're not building equity in something. Like, you're helping other brands advance their mission, but not your own. And so at the end of the day, if your views go down, if you decide to pivot to anything else, like you don't have that much. And so that's like a pretty scary feeling that a lot of creators have or aware of. And I think it's difficult to know what to do. How do you advance your career? How do you have more stability? How can you invest in things that have brand value or equity that you have ownership in? But I think there's a trend that we see with larger creators starting to do that, like, the Logan Pauls of the world, the Emma Chamberlains. But I think we'll also start to see a second wave of smaller creators build more niche businesses and use that to make this whole internet career a little bit easier.
Another company jumping into the growing space of the creator economy and helping creators monetize effectively is SamCart. Here's Brian McMullin, SamCart's head of product and customer experience.
SamCart is an e-commerce platform for creators built by creators. What we really try to do is help our customers get their buyers to a high converting checkout experience as quickly and simply as possible, and then help them maximize the revenue that's driven by that experience that the buyer has at that checkout. Creators that we work with are folks like folks selling custom keto diets to their buyers, vegan chefs selling recipes and cooking courses, or business coaches looking to sell workshops or things like that to help others be successful within their own businesses. The way I like to think about it personally is we help creators take their side hustles, turn them into their main hustles, and then ultimately turn those into growing and thriving businesses.
I mean, it sounds pretty great. And I wonder if you could tell us what differentiates your creators from, say, a traditional person who wants to open up a small business online.
In a lot of ways, they're very similar, but I think what we What we see is a bit different in the creator and the influencer space, is that the buying behavior is slightly different. If you're just looking to sell, more of a catalog based product online, thinking about the last time I bought socks, I have a brand affinity with a retailer that sells socks. I go to their website. I know that they sell that. I search, I browse, I fill a cart full of the things that I want to buy, in this case, socks. I check out, and then that completes the purchase. I think what we see with creators and with influencers is that they've built an audience through content, through videos, through building relationships with individuals through the content that they create. And then ultimately, the thing that they sell, or the selling motion, is a bit more abbreviated, a bit more direct, that they go from a piece of content to, okay, and then here is a related thing that you can purchase from me, which ends up making the buying experience, it makes it much more important that it is a very direct, very streamlined, and also very highly converting experience that you can then surround with other things to buy. Enabling those customers or those sellers to maximize the amount of revenue driven by each of those purchasing interactions.
One of the things that reminded me of is this distinction I sometimes make between scientific creativity and artistic creativity, and the difference being that a scientifically creative product doesn't depend on who discovered it. The structure of DNA, doesn't matter who thought of it or who figured it out. It would still have been considered creative. But when it comes to an artistic creative product, the person behind the product is actually integral to our valuing it as creative. So if Banksy, created some street art, that is much more valuable than somebody who is imitating Banksy and did the exact same stencil. We sort of like the fact that it's a Banksy seems to be really important. So it makes me wonder how this maps onto what you're doing and how that influences then the kinds of things that your creators are looking for, because I imagine that it's not just about a brand. Their identity, who they are as people, is kind of tied into their business in a unique way.
Yeah, very much. So I think things like the design of the experience is incredibly important for them, because it is a reflection of who they are. To your point, in many ways, what the buyer is purchasing is not just a generic sterile product. It's part of that creator, that brand that they're creating. And I think the trust and the belief that what they're buying is part of that, if what they're selling is truly on brand, which please, creators sell on brand things. Mm-hmm. But if that is the case, then ultimately, making sure that purchase experience really reflects who they are, and giving them the tools and the capabilities to make sure that, what they're selling, how they're selling it really, feels incorporated into the broader experience that they're creating as a creator. We have one of our favorite customers is a vegan chef, and they have a large following online, following their recipes, their online cooking tips and videos, and the things that they create out there. So they have a very engaged audience. And I think what they've been able to do with that audience is then turn around and then say, hey, if you liked this recipe, here is my book. And, why don't you go out there and buy my book? And then while they're in the process of buying that book, say, well, okay, we have, these 2 other books that we can give you at a discount. Or not only do we have a book, but we have courses that we run every week that you can subscribe to, and then you can pop in to really teach you how to, really effectively cook, in this way, which I don't know if you've, tried to make anything vegan. It can be hard to pull off in a way that really ultimately ends up being, appetizing at the end of it. So, enabling them to, engage that audience, hand their touch points with their audience off to something that is a very directed sale, something that is really easy for that person to understand and understand the value of. And then once you've given them a little bit of what they want, introduce them to the other things that they could potentially want, that, once they've already opened their wallet, that they're more interested in continuing to spend, with that creator.
So to your point, a particular creator will have a specific audience, and also that will come with a particular feel. So, whether it's, an age group or, some other kind of niche area, there will be ways in which their communication differs from, say, somebody who's quite different from a different generation or a different, place, et cetera. Are there customization tools that your creators can use within SamCart that can keep that experience as on brand as possible?
Yeah, so we try to keep our experiences as customizable as possible. Obviously, the natural things like colors and font and all of that. But what we're actually mostly trying to do is get out of the way. At the end of the day, our creators have spent a lot of time and effort building their own brand. Whether it's what they've already done across content or social platforms or their websites. The last thing that we want them to have to do is to recreate that or rebuild it somewhere else. So a lot of the time that we've spent over the last year has really been thinking about how we can shorten that distance between where and how they're engaging with their audience and that purchase process. And I think it's kind of funny, all the talk about funnels and purchasing funnels. Turns out the most effective funnel is the one that doesn't actually exist at all. That if you can actually present the buying experience right there, in your engagement with them, that the likelihood of them ultimately purchasing significantly increases. So embeddable experiences, being able to simply put a button in your blog post or wherever you're engaging and have that create a slide in purchase experience that doesn't encroach upon your engagement with your audience. Or if you really do need to take someone away, really streamlining that and then getting them back to engaging with you as quickly as possible. So I think in a lot of ways, we try to customize, we try to give our customers all the bells and whistles that they want to make whatever the experience is feel like them. But really, in many ways, we're just trying to get out of the way so that the purchase and the checkout experience really is just as transparent as possible, and they are the ones that are shining through.
So speaking of this streamlining and removing layers of friction, at which point or how does SamCart then partner with Visa Direct to make this all possible?
Yeah, so Visa's been a great partner with us, especially when it comes to payouts and payout speed, namely instant payouts. When you think about who our customers are, they're primarily SMB, or even you could call them micro SMB. Many are solopreneurs or relatively small teams building successful businesses. And back to my point earlier, taking a side hustle to a main hustle, this is now their primary revenue stream. So when it comes to getting access to those funds, not only is that critical to them because that's what's going to be funding, their continued ad spend to drive more business to their courses that they're selling, or replenish their inventory so that they don't run out and they can keep, selling their products. It's also to fund their daily lives. It's, paying the babysitter and getting the groceries this weekend and, making sure that, the rent or mortgage, check is getting in the mail on time. So getting access to those funds and making sure that there is speed in money movement when it comes to that is really important for this group because that is directly funding both their business and their day-to-day lives.
Can you share an example or two of how making these payments more efficient or faster actually has a kind of tangible impact on a particular creator's work?
Yep. So I'd say in one of our cases, we have a customer who is selling not only diet programs, but then also protein supplements that go along with those diet programs. And what we've seen with them especially is being able to get those payouts as frequently as possible is really helping them make sure that they have the inventory on hand when it comes to selling the protein supplements, getting their warehouse restocked and making sure that they're not in a position where they're overselling ahead of their inventory, and they can keep the shipping times and the customer experience that they want in delivering on that experience, as high quality as it can possibly be.
While other more traditional financial institutions might dismiss this as a niche, Visa Direct is helping Karat and SamCart change that perspective.
I don't even necessarily think of it as, oh, it's the creator economy. Eventually, it's just going to become the regular economy. Just like nobody today talks about the internet economy and how everybody's using the internet. It's what are you using the internet for? That's how I view the context through which, yeah, you're making content. Cool. But like, what are you using it for?
This niche is a $100 billion economy, as measured by Goldman in their most recent report, growing at about 30% CAGR, with 30% of American children wanting to become professional YouTubers tomorrow. When we look at all the leading indicators, we look at the current state of the economy today and where AI is heading, what is the future of work? I think it will be far more creative. The information is no longer the crucial piece. It is the creativity, it is the curation, and it is ultimately the trust with this personality that matters. I think all roads lead to Rome, Rome in this case being the creator economy basically taking over the rest of the world and in terms of how business is done and marketed. And so when we think about that segment, the benefit that we have today is that some folks see this as a niche. And so it's a little bit more open, and it is possible for us to build up some of these basic financial tools that understand creators and treat creators as the businesses they are. This allows us to then really focus on building out products and services that cater directly to those creators. Things like insights, telling creators, here's how you can make 20% more revenue. Here is how we can actually bank you. Here is what it even means to get an EIN or pay your taxes. And by educating this class of creators, building that trust with this niche, we're able to then grow with this niche until it becomes, hopefully, this all-encompassing industry, and we become the rails for all small businesses.
Yeah. And that's a huge reason why we were so excited to come to this podcast and work with Visa. Because it's early, there's so much growth potential. Because it's early, we wanted a partner that understood what this already is and what this could become. And for us, the partnership we've had with Visa over the past few years has been absolutely critical in building, say the first business credit card for creator that actually makes sense and gives them terms that appreciate the size of what they've built versus, oh, I don't know, this seems kind of weird, kind of risky, let's hold off.
As the creator economy shows no signs of slowing, this niche industry is turning mainstream, and innovators like Karat Financial and SamCart are helping build new tools for money movement, enabling creators to monetize their passions. Thank you for listening to Money Travels, and thank you to our guests, Max Reisinger, Eric Way, Will Kim, and Brian McMullin. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or follow the show and leave us a review so that other people can find it. Until next time, I'm Indre Viscontis, and this has been Money Travels, presented by Visa.